Hey, book besties. Welcome to More Than a Book Club podcast. I'm your host, Leyna.
And I'm your other host, LJ. And today we are talking about The Correspondent by Virginia Evans.
And this was a book. I know I have my book.
You have
all
the
ready to go.
physical copy. Love
I
it.
read a physical copy. This was one of my purchases during Ice Storm whenever
Yes.
our local bookshop they were closed for business. And so they encouraged people to buy online. And then when I went to go pick up my books, I forgot what I had gotten.
Hey, so it was like a gift for you.
It was a very big surprise. I was like, I feel like I got this, but I don't know. So that was
That's
fun.
awesome.
But this was a book that was really hyped. And
It
I
was.
wasn't sure if I would like it, if it would live up to the hype. And in my opinion, it definitely did.
Oh, definitely. Which, if you don't know what The Correspondent is, let me read you this little blurb that AI created for me. The Correspondent by Virginia Evans is a 2025 debut epistolary novel that tells the life story of Sybil Van Antwerp, a retired lawyer in her 70s, through her letters and emails. The book explores themes of aging, forgiveness, and memory as Sybil writes to friends, family, and even strangers while confronting a painful event from her past. It has been praised as a moving and witty story with a memorable cantankerous protagonist and is recommended for fans of literary fiction and epistolary novels. And if you don't know what an epistolary novel is, it's just the term for a novel written through letters.
I think this is the first time I'd ever read an epistolary novel. So this was a whole new experience for me. And I likened it to, what was the book? Daisy Jones and the Six.
Yes.
How it was so different, where it really was just like a novel idea for me. The way that Daisy Jones and the Six was written and the way that The Correspondent was written. And it really just captured me. And I was worried that it wasn't going to be exciting, or I was like, letters? But it was very well done.
I was very excited because I have read epistolary novels. I think the first epistolary novel that I remember reading was when I think I was in college and I was like home for summer or winter break. And my mom had this bookshelf with like all these old books. This could sound funny. It was actually in the laundry room, which it was a pass through kind of, but bigger than a pass through when you came in from the garage. Because you came in and there's like a mother-in-law suite. And then this laundry room was pretty big. They also had a refrigerator, but they had this shelf and it had all these books like that she had kept from her childhood. And there was this blue hardback that was entitled Daddy Longlegs. And I pulled that out because this is so random. I don't like spiders, but I grew up seeing Daddy Longlegs all the time. And I feel like I have not seen one as an adult. And they were everywhere when I was little. And so I was like, what is this? And it was an epistolary novel that I read where basically this girl that had been in kind of like an orphanage, but it was like for like all girls. And I think it was nicer than some of the others that have been portrayed. And there is a wealthy benefactor that like says that he will pay for her college. And so she just has to write him letters. And I believe she names him Daddy Longlegs because he needs a name. Now, this book was like published in like the 1920s. So it was such a fun story. And then years later, I've mentioned this one on the podcast a while ago, like in an earlier episode, called Dear Mr. Knightley, which is basically a remake of that, modern times. And it's by an author. I should have looked this up. But this author writes other Jane Austen titled or kind of like themed novels. And so it was really sweet. And Catherine Ree or Ray, something like that, Reay, I think. But anyway, I don't know. But anyway, they're really sweet. So I love epistolary novels. And what you might not have realized, probably because you had never read one before, is you only get one side of the story unless they decide to share, which is so different.
And what I liked about this novel was that you do get a little bit of other people's perspective, because it's the main character, Sybil. I think, like you said, she's a 70-year-old woman. She's 73, I think, at the start of the novel.
Yeah, something like that.
And she writes letters, and then occasionally you'll get a letter back from someone
that she'll share.
She does write literally everyone, because this is her
Yes.
way of communicating with the world. So she writes her friends and family, of course, but she also writes famous authors, people that she has come in contact with in the world, like that she saw on the news or something like that. And she just writes
Yes.
everyone. And I was like, that is such a, like, I have never thought of, I should write that person a letter.
I know, and I want to read you a quote that I say from this that
Hmm.
kind of explained because she let me find it. So she I don't remember who this was referencing, but she said, "I showed her a few of the more remarkable letters, the one from Jackie Kennedy, the one from Walt Disney. She was astounded that people write back. And of course, I told her people are just people, famous or not."
Yes. And that's like what a good thing to remember is that everyone is just a person.
Yeah.
And even if they're famous, they're still like an average person deep
Yeah.
down, right? They still have the same wants, needs, desires of everybody else. It might just be on a different level.
So, we have a friend who is kind of this character with regards to authors. Our friend Allie will write letters to authors
Yes.
telling them how much she enjoyed their books. And often they will send her like signed stickers or plates that you can put in your books. And she really does. And I think maybe that is something that we should I mean, I know they get overwhelmed probably with letters, but I still think if you're sending a positive email or they're commenting on a post and just telling them how much your book meant to them, I
Hmm.
just can't see that as there's a negative to that.
One thing that Sybil talks about is that email has kind of taken over and people
Mhm.
don't correspond through writing letters. And that is the truth. My mom was like a hardcore letter writer until just a few years ago. Like she would send letters in the mail. She wrote to all of her friends, family, um, and it's like a lost art form. And I think now I will send like Instagram messages to authors that I like. I'm like, oh, your
Mhm.
book was just really good. It
Yeah.
spoke to me. I just wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed it. Or I'll post on Instagram, like tagging them
Comment on a
or
post, yeah, or
comment on
tag,
one of their
yeah.
posts. But one of the things, an author, Meg Schaefer, she has the Book Witch coming out, and she had posted on Instagram that she's been overcome with AI bots messaging her
Mhm.
and emailing her. And she said, the only way that I will take any, like, if you want to ask her to an event, if you like, whatever, it has to be through handwritten mail. And I was
Mhm.
like, that is a whole new frontier. Like, it's kind of like
Yeah.
how, it
You're going
reminded me
back, it's
whenever,
full circle.
yeah, when email first came out and everybody was like, oh, I'm going to email instead of write a letter. And then you started getting junk mail in your email. And I
Mhm.
don't want to use email as much anymore because most of it is just
No.
ads and junk. And I don't get actual
Yeah.
correspondence anymore. And then it moved to Facebook and everybody was Facebook messaging. And then that turned into ads.
Mhm.
And then it turned like it is going
Yeah.
full circle. I feel like we'll be writing letters more and more as
Mhm.
we get older.
So I used to write letters all the time, and I think it's because I started going to summer camp at age 6, and
Hmm.
so we would have letter writing time, and mostly it was, I think, because they had to help us little kids write, and they
Hmm.
kinda taught us how to write letters. And I had cute stationery, and then at the end of camp, we got this paper yearbook, and at the end, it had everyone's physical addresses so we could write letters, and so we would
That's
write
fun.
letters to each other, and then also this should come as no surprise. I was totally invested in writing notes in high school. And my notes were not salacious or anything. There was nothing really interesting. It was mostly like you write someone's name in bubble letters, and it's like, I'm sitting in science class. And I was just thinking about da 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 and da da da. And it was just very innocent, even in like middle
Did you
school.
like fold
And I
them all
loved to
crazy
write
into
notes.
little triangles?
Oh, of course. Of course. In the little football triangles,
Hmm.
absolutely I did. And but it was just fun, like, it was and then a few years back, I think it was probably about 10, 11 years ago, I I went on a, like, Jane Austen reread binge, and I read them all within a few months. and then watched all the movies. And my friend Shannon, which shout out Shannon, she listens to the podcast over in the UK. She and I was like, "Hey, can we start writing letters?" And so we did for a while where we wrote physical letters back and forth, and it was so much fun. I'm gonna Shannon, if you're listening, I think we should do this again. So let's do it. I need your
I remember
just
back
saying.
in high school writing letters all the time, mostly because
Yeah.
we lived in Germany. And for the summer, we would go to our other parents' house, me and my sister and my brother. We didn't like calling people was expensive. It's not like it
Oh,
is
yeah.
now where you could call or text for free. A long distance phone call was
Mhm.
insanely expensive, and especially to another
Yes.
country. Like that was just not going to happen. So you wrote letters to
Dude,
stay
it
in
used to
contact with
be
people.
like McKinney or like northern suburbs of Dallas
Hmm.
were long distance,
Yep.
which is crazy.
I remember staying at my grandma's house and calling my cousin who lived like 30 minutes away was long distance.
Mhm. Yeah.
Totally boggles my mind. And it's why I think whenever that became a more common thing where you could call or text and have it be part of your plan,
Mhm.
letter writing became more obsolete. I definitely
Let's bring
this
it
made me
back.
it made me want to start writing. And I was like, okay, get some nice stationery. Because one thing Sybil does say is she orders her stationery from somewhere in England, doesn't she?
I think
I
so.
feel I feel like it was. So it was somewhere in Europe, and she orders this special stationery,
Mhm.
and she has a special pen, and she goes all out. And I don't know, one of the relationships that I really loved was she wrote an old coworker's son who was a teenager,
Yeah.
Harry Landy, and she wrote to him, and he would write on like the 15th and she would write on the 1st. So they had a schedule that they kept up with for years and
Yes.
would communicate,
Yes.
and they called it keeping stones, but they would keep each other's
Mhm.
secrets. And one
Yes.
thing that is happening to this protagonist, to Sybil, is that she has learned she is losing her vision. And she
Yes.
loves to read, she loves to write. These are her things that she does. And she's only confided in a few people that she is losing her vision. And one of them is Harry,
Mhm.
which at the start of the novel, I think he's like 13 or 14. And
Yeah, he's young.
it's this big generation gap, but they feel like they can tell each other things. And I was like, I love that relationship for them.
That reminded me of my relationship with my great-grandmother, and I mean, it's kinda like, it's sad looking back because sometime in high school, I stopped going over and spending the night anymore because you grow up
Hmm.
but it reminded me of that where you feel like you can tell it's like it skips a generation, like, your
Hmm.
parents you don't really trust, but then the older people's because in a lot of ways, they get more, like, rigid, but in other ways, they get so relaxed about certain things, and something I noted about her relationship with him was how different it seems it was with her own children, and which
Yes.
we find out early on that she lost a child and that there was some tragedy that we don't know about, and I'm not gonna spoil anything. You can read the book and find out,
And
but
you don't find out
seeing
till like
this
the
in, like,
end of what happened. Yeah.
yeah, so we cannot spoil this,
Mm-mm.
but just seeing the letters and her talking about her relationships, especially with her daughter, were tough, and so seeing this, though, with Harry, I feel like it's her opportunity to be the parent she wished she had been, and I see that in
Yes.
grandparents too, like, my mom has said repeatedly, "It's so much better being a grandparent than a parent," and, I think that we see that, like, I feel like grandchildren just I mean, it depends on the grandparent. I was closer to some grandparents over others, and it's just a really I don't know, it's just a cool experience to see, and that just really stood out to me.
My mom also has said that being a grandparent is better than a parent. I think you don't have the responsibility, but you get to
Mhm.
have more fun and more flexibility and freedom.
Yes.
And
Yes.
one thing we learn about Sybil is that she's kind of guarded. She's blocked herself
Yes.
off
Mhm.
very much so, and she doesn't confide in a lot of people. It's almost like she has built these walls around herself, and
Mhm.
she's very independent. And one of the things, whenever she's talking about losing her vision and suddenly going blind, you know, she knows that it'll eventually happen. And we find that
Yes.
out very early on in the book. And one of her big things is, I guess when I go blind, I just assume that I'll die.
Yeah.
And it's like she can't imagine a life after that where she has to be dependent on people. She lives by herself
Right.
right now. Like, she doesn't want to be a burden to her children. She doesn't want to be
No.
someone that other people have to take care of. And I can relate to that. And I see that with my
Oh,
own
yeah.
mom, where she's had some health issues and she doesn't want to be a burden, doesn't want to ask for help, doesn't want to be dependent upon others. I mean,
Yeah.
it's difficult. Me just having the seizure and not being able to drive for 90 days. Like, that is very
Yeah.
hard to ask other people for help. And I think that that's one thing that as you go along and you get older, you have to start relying on people more. And Sybil has
Yeah.
these relationships that are not as close as they should be because she's built up these walls.
And she can hide behind the letters too,
Hmm.
because like she talks about in one of them, that sometimes it takes her an hour or more to write a letter because she's very thoughtful with her words. And, you can tell because of some later on, you see some unfinished letters where she crosses out stuff, but the rest of hers aren't like that. So she also can rewrite the letters
Hmm.
and edit things. I think that that has helped her stay behind there. And it's interesting because I think all that started, I think what really set her up for this and like kind of pulling back was when she found out that she was adopted at 14 months,
Yes.
because that does make, which that's not as, that's, we find that out pretty early. That is
Yes.
an interesting thing because you just don't hear about kids being adopted that, like, nowadays we do because of like, them being removed by CPS and fostered. But this was an outright adoption in the, what would we say,
She was born in
30s,
the
30s?
30s, like 39, I think.
Okay. So, like, thinking back to then, I mean, again, it's like that's weird with knowing that her mom gave her up because her mom
Yes.
sent a letter, and I think that probably messed with her.
The letter that she got when she was a teenager, but had been sent to her adoptive
Mhm.
parents at the time that the biological mother gave up the
Yes.
baby. And it's one of those things where I'm sure she had walls from the very beginning because of that. She knew she was adopted at a young age, like, her parents didn't keep that from
Yes.
her, and as she got older and had more questions about it, and it's one of those things where I'm reading a book right now, The Astral Library by Kate Quinn, and she's talking about wanting to be chosen. And
Mhm.
she's in the foster care system too, but it's like you want people to choose you. And I don't think Sybil had that. Like, she didn't have that until she was way older, until she met her husband, who she talks about, who's now her ex-husband. But we don't see Sybil really being chosen until she's married, until she feels chosen
Mhm.
and has this relationship that is very, very good. And then it kind of falls apart.
Mhm.
And I really loved and enjoyed learning about things as the letter writing went on, because she doesn't just divulge everything. It's
Mhm.
almost like a conversation with
No.
someone where you're not going to find out everything at the beginning, but as you go along, you're going to hear more about their life. You're
Yeah.
going to grow deeper in the relationship. Things from the past are going to be brought up,
Well,
like
yeah, because
her her friend Rosalie, who she has been friends with
yeah.
since they were like 12, 13, and that's where she really started letter
Yeah.
writing, was when her friend moved away. They have this storied history. They become sisters-in-law. Like, it's
Yeah.
crazy, and I love it. And they still write letters to each other even though they're 70 years old.
Well, so what's interesting too with this, like what you're going back to what you were saying about not getting all the information, she
Yeah.
references people and does not say who they are to her. Now, if she's like your loving sister, or she gets
Yes.
one that says your loving brother and stuff like that, like then but there were a lot of times because I was listing out characters because I wasn't sure what
Mhm.
you had done on the reading guide already, and I didn't want to spoil anything. So I haven't looked at it yet. I just finished
Mhm.
this last night. But when I was listening, I'm like, okay, who is this person? Obviously, if it was a famous author, I knew who they were.
Mhm.
But then others, I'm like, okay, who is that? Like for a long time, I just had lists of names and then I was guessing based on context. And like I was guessing because she references her husband, but she doesn't call him
Mhm.
that for a very long time. And I'm like, that has
Yeah.
to be who this is.
And it's also interesting, because some of the it was a quick read for me. I probably could have finished this
Yeah,
in one day if I wasn't
I
taking notes on
agree.
it.
I
And
agree 100%.
one of the fun things about it is some of the letters are longer, like 3 or 4 pages, and then some of them are like
Mhm.
half a paragraph, but that's a whole page.
Yeah.
So you could theoretically, if you wanted to read just like a little bit at a time, you could read like 3 letters and then go back and read 3
Mhm.
more.
Yeah.
So you could take your time with this novel, but you could also read it really quickly because
Yes.
you do want to find out more. You want to peel back the layers and find out who is Sybil, who are these people that she's writing to, what's going on in their lives. And the book starts I think in 2013 was the
Okay.
first letter.
Yeah, I think that's when it starts, and it
Let's
goes to
see.
2021, right?
2012. 2012 is
And
whenever
then
it
goes to
starts in 2022.
okay,
So we get
2022.
10 years of her life. So I think she's just turning 73 at the start of the novel. And then we get to
Yes.
see kind of this section of her life as an older woman
Mhm.
looking back. And I was like, I love this.
And she has a quote in there at some point, "My life is in winter anyway, only a little while left to nurse regrets." She's in the winter.
Yep. And I, as you get older, I mean, I'm only 43. We're 43,
Mhm.
right? That's how old we are. Sometimes I forget.
That is how old
But
we are.
but as you get older, you start to think about things differently and see things differently. And I wonder whenever
Mhm.
we're 70, how are we going to look back on things that happened 30 years ago that are happening right now? And how are we going to look back on
Yes.
that? And her husband, her ex-husband, have been divorced for 30 something years. And how
Yeah,
does
really
that
long time.
relationship change? Because
Mhm.
they had a good relationship, then it fell apart, and
Yeah.
they continue having some knowledge of each other because
Yeah.
her best friend is Rosalie, who's her sister-in-law, who's married to her ex-husband Dan's brother.
Right.
So, like, they
Because
still get glimpses of each
yeah.
other. But, like, what's that like whenever it's 30 years removed? And how do you
Mhm.
feel differently about it? And not just that relationship, but other relationships.
Others as well,
Yeah.
but I do wanna talk about that because I'm not gonna say anything that we know she gets divorced, like, that's all I'm gonna say
Mhm.
with that, but there was a quote that I'm not gonna say because it gives something else away, but when I was reading this one part, like, I've been divorced for almost 3 years, and there was a quote in there that, like, actually made me cry thinking about it
Mm.
because just thinking about the relationship that we once had, and when you and I may have mentioned this before, when you have, like, like, we were together almost 2 decades, there are things that will happen, and I'll be like, "Oh,
Yes.
he'll appreciate this," or, like, I'll see something that reminds me of an inside joke, and I can't send those to him, like, I it's not right, and if I tell anyone else, it means nothing. And then
Mhm.
also just thinking about and oh my gosh, I'm, like, tearing up.
Mhm.
That was someone that knew me inside and out, like, better than anyone for almost half my life,
Yeah.
and that's just gone. And I'm like, "It's okay." Like, I have friends, I have close friendships, but we've even talked about how hard it is to make close adult friendships, and there were people that were there for specific parts of that, that I'm no longer close with, and so it's like even those people that were there for that, that were around, like, it's just it's a weird thing to think this person like, we have all these shared memories that there's no one else that could really appreciate our perspective, like, with our kids, like, as parents,
Yeah.
and that does sometimes that still gets me sad.
Like all the little inside jokes like you were talking about, or the little
Yes,
things
like the
that
day-to-day, the things that no one else knew about,
my
just the
husband
things that
knows
are
all
part of
about our kids and the silly little
yeah,
things that happened when they were babies that,
yes, or even
that
just
no one else
living
will know about.
together and just
Yeah.
yeah, and that no one else will appreciate if I get nostalgic, you know? And it's so interesting to me because first of all, he was my first relationship, but
Mhm.
also for such an extensive one. There's just so much. And
Yes.
this is not me this is not me missing him in a romantic way or in a we should still be married way, but it's very much losing, I guess, kind of the friend aspect of the
Mhm.
relationship, the things that we would laugh about, or even if there was something sad that happened. Like
Yeah.
I recently, and might make me cry. I was thinking about our dogs that we
Yeah.
had from puppies, and then, they died before we moved into this house, and just I don't know how this came up, but I was talking about how after Major died, he would always put his nose on the glass of the back door to look outside, and I did not wash that off until we moved. Because I was like, that's all we have left of Major. And anyway, so
Yeah.
like things like that, like no one can understand the love for those animals like he could.
Mhm.
But again,
And
like it's just a part of life. You have like and I'm sure he probably has moments like that too. But we're
mhm.
not there anymore. So
Right.
maybe Lena, I'm going to start texting you random inside jokes and be like, I know this doesn't make sense to you, but and then I'll try to explain it and then you'll be like, okay, great.
And one thing you just said that stuck out to me was you were talking about friends that were really close to you during a certain moment in time. And
Mhm.
Sybil has some of those relationships. She has a relationship
She
with
does.
an ex-lawyer, a retired lawyer, Mick, I think his name
Mhm.
was. And he remembers
I
her
believe
as
so, yes.
the
Oh,
feisty
no, Guy.
lawyer.
That no, wait.
It was Mick Guy,
Oh, yeah, that's
right?
a
Or
friend,
Guy
yes. Oh,
Mick?
yes, you have friend, yeah, yeah. Oh, you're no, no, no. Guy was the guy she worked for, you're right. Mick is someone that
Yeah, okay.
they knew of each other in the lawyer world.
Yes. And he just knew her as
But yeah,
this
go back to
lawyer,
him.
and he knew her from this one snippet in time. And
Yes.
then it's been like 20, 30 years since she has seen him, but he still
Mhm,
remembers her as that. He
mhm,
doesn't really know her, but it's almost like
mm-mm,
this, I don't know. It was like a weird relationship where he wanted more than she was willing to give and he pushed her, but I
mhm.
think that those pushes
And I think
and helped her move along.
no, I agree, and I think he had this perception of her from
Mhm.
her reputation, and then also they didn't live in the same place, so they had very limited snippets together, and, you can't really I mean, like, he was very interested in her and but very different personality-wise from her,
Mhm.
and while that can work, I mean, her age, she wasn't sure if that's what she wanted, a whole different lifestyle.
Everything. Like it would have uprooted
Everything, yeah.
everything. So
Mm,
that was interesting. But the whole book, it has a lot to do with grieving and aging. Like you said about
mhm.
the, what do you call it? The AI thing about the summary of the book. But
Yes,
there's also a lot of joy there as well.
so
And
much.
seeing how relationships change and how, like, there's one relationship where it starts out good, she gets angry, and then it comes back to like there's just dips in the relationship and you get to see that, and you're not
Mhm,
always going to be happy with the person that you're friends with. Like sometimes it's going to
mm-mm.
have those ups and downs. That's very normal, very natural. And it felt like that was really represented in this book because sometimes I feel like you get to see
Mhm.
only the happy moments or only the sad moments, but this was, I mean, it takes place
Yes.
over 10 years. You get to see everything, the good, the
Yeah.
bad, the ugly, new discoveries. So one of the things that she does is her son gifts her a DNA testing kit. And so she starts
Mhm.
writing the company, becomes friends with one of the
Yes!
customer service reps. And I loved that relationship so
I
much.
I did too, so much.
And it turns out he's an engineer from Syria. Like he's stuck in this customer service job because that's all that he can get in America. And she doesn't
Mhm.
disparage him. Like she treats him the same as she does the famous authors that she writes and gives him the same
Yeah.
respect and everything. Like she doesn't talk down to people, which is one thing that I really
No.
enjoyed about her. Even though she's a cantankerous old woman set in her ways and she's very dogged about what she wants to get.
Mhm.
But she has these relationships. There's also one where she has audited English language
Oh,
courses, like
yes.
literary courses, and there's a new dean taking over who won't let her audit the courses. And their
Mhm.
relationship back and forth, loved it.
And I think she teaches us a lesson with that too when she
Mhm.
shows up to meet this woman, and when they're both face to face, it changes everything. And
Every
while she
dynamic.
has
Yeah.
all this connection, yeah, she has so many relationships that are maintained through letters, but seeing that human connection, some things are lost in translation in email.
Mhm.
And it just was so cool to see how that, because like you said, even with the customer service agent, she treated him like a human more than a customer service agent. Like, what,
Mhm.
as they're through their messaging, wants to get to know him, learn more about his life. She apologizes when she makes an assumption. And I think that's so cool. And we also see later how she deals with a regret where she hurt someone a long
Mhm.
time ago. And I think that was also very cool to see how she could take accountability and make restitution to the best of her ability.
And I think it's one of those things whenever you look back on your life, there are certain things that you regret that you did in anger, and
Mhm.
you can't take back words that are
Yeah.
said. And that's one thing. She has an
No.
argument with one of the characters, and she's like, "I said things
Mhm.
that I shouldn't have, and that's why I'm writing this letter so I can take my time to think about it without the emotion." And there's
Mhm.
sometimes where I wish that I could go back and change the things that were said, and it's
Mhm.
easier whenever you're in the moment to have that angry, emotionally
Yes.
charged discourse. Whereas if you give yourself some time and step back and remove yourself from the situation a little bit, that's where I'm like, letter
Mhm.
writing would be so beneficial because you could take your time, you could say what you
Mhm.
meant and have it not come
Mhm.
across as angry or bitter. But there's also, like you said, the case where
Mhm.
she met the English dean, where meeting in person changed the whole dynamic for that. And it was
Salvage the
like,
situation.
yes. And so sometimes letter
Yeah.
writing can be beneficial, but sometimes you need a different form of communication.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, and this is a quote that when she's talking about communication, she says, "I believe one ought to be precious with communication. Remember, words, especially those written, are immortal."
And her friend Rosalie has kept letters from when they were young girls. And they
Mhm.
even say, like, nobody's going to care about this except for us. But they joke about making a book out of it, which I'm like, that's kind of funny because
Mhm.
it's literally a book about the letters that she's writing. But her and
Yeah.
Rosalie can look back and see their journey as friends, becoming sisters in law,
Yeah.
through grief,
Mhm.
through heartbreak, through joy, all of these different emotions. And they have a record of it, and it is immortal.
Yes.
It made me think
Mhm.
of Hamilton whenever the play Hamilton and his wife is burning the letters that he wrote to her so that no one will
Mhm.
know what like their relationship. And I'm like, man, that would be
Mhm.
powerful. And to have
Right.
letters and notes from historical figures, from even just your own family. And it makes me
Mhm.
think back, in 100 years, are our great great grandchildren going to go back and listen to our podcast and see what we were
Right. I
talking
mean, that
about?
is,
And
yeah, and that is something that I've thought about recently, is
Mhm,
that everything we put out, like, I mean, this is going to come off sounding conceited, but what a gift, because there are people in my life, like my grandparents that have passed away, that like I can hear their voice a little bit, but it fades over time, and how I wish I had some recording of
mhm,
their voices. And especially like my great grandmother and even my grandmother, they died after we had iPhones. So it's not like it would be
mhm.
hard to record that. And even before that, like having like a digital tape recorder or even like a regular tape recorder, and just those things that like our kids, if they're missing us, they're going to have video to look back.
And that is one of my friends had her dad died about a year and a half ago.
Mhm.
They knew he was dying. He was on hospice with cancer, and one of the things
Mhm.
that they did was they recorded almost like interviews with him about his childhood and growing up and what it was like, just so they would
Yeah.
have those memories and they could pass that along, and they can go back
Mhm.
and revisit it at a later date. And I was like, "That is
Yeah.
such a great idea." And one of the things that I gave my mom for Christmas one year, it's, I can't remember the name of it. I'll have to look it up, but it was a
I know what
service.
you're talking about. I gave it
It's
to
like a
my mom, and guess what? Claudia never finished it.
so my
I
mom
think it
did
was
not finish it
Storygraph,
either,
My Storygraph. I think it was My Storygraph or something like that.
something like that. I gave it to my mom the Christmas after she had her brain surgery. So it wasn't the ideal time, but
Did she do it though?
she did it for a while, and I think that as the year went on, she didn't publish it. Like, you can get one free copy, and but it's basically they
Yeah.
ask you questions, and then you go in and fill it out, and it's like, "What was it like growing up? What was your favorite subject in school? What was it like when you
Mhm.
got married? Your first love?" And all these different things so that your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandchildren have some sort of record. And I was like, "What a fun idea." And my mom's really big into genealogy,
Mhm.
so I thought that she would really dig that. And I think that the timing of it was just not right
Yeah.
because you can add pictures to it, you
Yeah.
can do all this stuff. It was really cool.
And what it was is they could just email back and the
Yes.
website collected it and made it into a book. But yeah, my mom, I'm pretty sure never finished. Claudia. Michelle, tell her she should finish it. That's her friend who
Yes.
is our friend of the show.
Thank
Yes.
you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. Tell Claudia to finish it because I want it.
And if anybody is out there and they have thought about writing down, like, I think about it when my grandfather died, I was at my grandparents' house, and my grandma has all these recipes, and she is such a good cook.
Mhm.
And I took pictures and video of all of her recipe cards because I was like, these
Yeah.
recipes, I would love for them to live on. And one thing in 2020 she did during COVID years, she would send me, I was telling her about how we were baking more and doing more things. So she sent me her brownie recipe, her chocolate icing recipe. But even those little things, if you're going to write
Mhm.
something down, I think it's just a nice gesture to have a memory of the past. And that's one thing reading this book,
Yeah.
it's just like we have this record of her and she was here and she mattered. And I think that
Yes.
it's like everyone matters and you matter to someone in your life,
Yes.
whether you are in a good relationship with them, you have a struggling relationship, you are an important part of their life. And it's important to remember that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of her relationships with her children is they worried about her and they cared for her and they
Yes.
loved her, but they didn't know how to express that or to get that across to her
Yeah.
and have her reciprocate that. They didn't know how to
Mhm.
love each other, kind of. So,
'Cause they learned that from her. She didn't
yes.
either. There were assumptions made on both sides. So,
And she
yeah.
did lose her mom, her adoptive mom, at a younger age. So
Yes.
there was also that grieving and those walls put up even then. Like, so you have all
Mhm.
these,
Yeah.
I don't know, just let the walls come down, people.
I know. Easier said than done. Although I will say I think in a lot of ways because I had the family that was like appearances matter. We don't talk about the stuff. And then I am like the polar opposite of that, which I think terrifies my family sometimes. I think now that doesn't terrify them as much. But when I
Yes.
was younger, the impulsivity combined with the I'm just going to say the thing really scared everyone. Like, oh my gosh, what is LJ going to say? And it's because I resisted that, and I don't know why that is. You would think I would follow in the footsteps, but I guess my
I
personality
think
was just
that's
like,
a
"Nope."
generational thing because my family was very, family secrets,
Same
don't
way.
talk about this. And I'm like, no, we're just going to talk about it because this affects
Mhm.
everybody. It's not just something that
Yeah.
if you shove it aside, that doesn't solve any problems. It
No.
doesn't. doesn't rectify the situation, people deserve to know and deserve to know the truth.
Absolutely.
And that has been something that I have tried to pass on to my kids. And there's certain
Same.
things that they can't know at a certain age, but as they get older,
Right.
revealing things and being like, this is
Yeah.
a thing. I mean, I have a family member who's an addict, and I remember my mom being like, "Oh, they're on a business trip." And I told my kids, I'm like, "No, they're in rehab." Like, let's be
Yeah.
real about this because they're going to
Yeah.
have struggles someday, and I don't
Mhm.
want them to feel ashamed of their struggles. And
No.
that's one thing that I think that Sybil, I don't know if she shares a lot of this stuff. She has
No,
that
I don't think she
generational block where
does.
she keeps it inside, and it's not
Yeah.
till she's, you know, older, closer to the end of the book,
Yeah.
that she can reveal some of these things and share these, like, deep regrets that
Mhm.
she has, and I think that opens her up as a different
Yeah,
person and frees her.
it does.
But overall, I would say definitely go read this book. It is worth the
Yes.
hype. I absolutely loved it.
Mhm.
I want to reread it again. I don't reread books. I think I have to stop saying that because I think that there's a lot of books that I
'Cause I
want to
think you're gonna
reread.
be.
I think I'm gonna be. And this would be one because it is such a
Yes.
quick read that I feel like you could read again. I don't know. It brought up a lot of emotions too, for
It
sure.
really did. It really did. And I wanna share, quote that really I mean, I know I've shared a bunch of quotes, but there were so many. I was highlighting so
Yes.
much in this book, but one that I think we can all I feel like she put words to something that I don't know that I had been able to put appropriate words to. And she was talking about her job and how, like, how important it was to her. And she said, "When you find a place for yourself in the world, it feels like music." And
Mhm.
that really resonated with me about, like, my life and education, my job as a teacher. And there was a time where I was burnt out and was trying to figure out what else I could do. And I ultimately came back to teaching, and I had to give it time and set boundaries so that I could rediscover my love of teaching, which
Mhm.
had nothing to do with the people and everything to do with how I burnt myself out on other aspects of it, like creation and stuff. And I do feel like this is my place in the world, and I love it. And I'm so glad I refound my joy, which is why I protect it so fiercely. But I love that description. When you find a place for yourself in the world, it feels like music.
And I think that's, not just job-wise, but community-wise. Whenever you
Anything. Oh, yeah, community-wise too.
find your people, and
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I love about our relationship is that,
Mhm.
it is one of those things where you find your people and it's like, "Okay, we're
Yeah.
good. Here's the music."
Yeah, I know. Because I think about it, Lena, we met and then, like, y'all moved, and
Mhm.
it's just funny how we could have very easily, like,
Just
never seen each other
never see
again.
each other.
But it's like, I
And
mean,
it's not
I
like our
believe it's
kids are
divine
friends,
intervention that
it's
God was like, "No, they're not." And it's cool to see that. I really see how, like, God was like, "No, no, no, this is gonna be your person." And we just kept I mean, we just found our common we
winding up
had so much
together.
in
Yeah.
common. Yeah, and it's just great. And then COVID happened, and I really think that is what solidified our little small group
Mhm.
because we were talking more than we ever had,
Yes, we were
and
talking
we
all the
we
time.
had all the time, and it was just like, "This is amazing." So that for sure was a gift from that season.
Mhm.
The
Yes.
best
Even
gift.
even bad seasons can have happy
Oh,
outcomes.
absolutely. Oh, definitely,
Mhm.
definitely, yes. So, anyway.
Well, yeah, everybody go read The Correspondent.
Yes. Claudia should be happy.
Yes, because you
Claudia
finally read
Claudia
it.
has been because this is the thing, Claudia has been telling me about this book since last fall or winter, whatever, I don't know. And then when I told her I was finally reading that we were reading it for book club, and she's like, "Of course, this always happens. I tell you to read something and you're like, no. And then when your friends tell you to read it, then you do." And I go, "No, mom, I've been planning to read it, but Emily's library hold just came through. Like, come on." And then she's like, "Oh, okay." So, no, Claudia, that book sounded amazing, and it was, so we read it.
We're gonna have a reading guide coming out on The Correspondent, and
Mhm.
if you want that, it will be on our Etsy shop. And then it will also be on our Patreon. If you are a $3 a month or $5 a month subscriber to Patreon, you will get that included with your membership. And it will have all of the characters. It'll have a summary. It'll have some fun games to play. And then I also listed out every book that they mention in this book, because this is also a book about books, because I don't know what it is, but lately I have been reading so many books that feature just amazing books in them. And then I'm just like, okay, now I want to go read all these books. So I listed them out because some of them are classics and some of them are more modern. And one of the characters in the book writes a book, and I concluded that one. So you'll have to look it over and see what book it is. But it will be a fun reading guide, and it'll be good for a book club, or if you're just a solo reader, it'll give you some even more bookish fun. So I hope that you guys all go out and look at that. And I think that's it for today. We'll be back with our next episode, which is going to be our February Literary Lately, which is always a fun episode to do. So join us for that one next week. All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to More Than a Book Club podcast. We are recorded and produced in McKinney, Texas.
Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on Instagram and TikTok.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.